Have you ever wondered about the real meaning of the four elements in ancient traditions? What do they mean, their essence? In this video I'm going to talk about their true meaning, and I will also reveal to you their relationship to the fifth element found in yoga. Hey, I'm Fred from Lions Roar channel. My goal concerning these videos is to strengthen your awareness and your consciousness concerning the forces and principles which constitute our motivation, emotions, wishes and actions. In my last video I spoke about the meaning of archetypes and how to harness them for your growth. This video is going to be about some of the most fundamental archetypes, the four elements. In the beginning I will give you a short explanation about their connection, then I will give you some details about the nature of each of them, and after that I will reveal the fifth element in yogic tradition to you, and how it relates to the other four elements from a wider perspective. And apart from that, if you like to know what all these elements have to do with a bow and an arrow, you'll understand this in the end. When we think of the four elements, we usually think of them as the forces of nature. We think of blazing fires, deep oceans, stormy winds and torn soil. We think of them as something very powerful, but very worldly. We usually don't think about them as a deeper principle. As I told you in my last video, which was about the nature of archetypes, in our reality everything is an expression of archetypal energies, expressing themselves in a variety of different ways, finding their expression in the outer as well as in our inner world. I used the example of the archetype of strength, which in the outer world manifests as physical power, and in our inner world manifests as willpower. Even if your body might be weak, your mental force can be very strong. But mental power, just as physical power, is an expression of the energetic quality of strength. The same with the four elements. Each of them can be found in the outer world, but can also be found in our inner world. The archetypes of the four elements are very basic manifestations of the divine, necessary for any creation in the material realm. When the divine splits itself up into the polarity of male and female, fire and water are born. Fire, representing the active directional force, water representing the passive energy supplying force. But to create matter, those two need two additional qualities, which they create by intermingling with each other. Air as a quality which gives the desire for moving forward, and earth as the actual form-giving element in this process. Moreover, fire and air are called active or male elements, while water and earth are called passive or female elements, because those are more about energy itself and less about activity. Any form of creation in the material realm cannot be achieved without one of these four elements. I'll tell you later why this is especially true for you if you want to achieve any particular result in your life. Now I will tell you the most fundamental meaning of each of those elements, starting with fire, then water, then air and finally earth, before I will tell you the fifth element and its meaning. All this is necessary for seeing the bigger picture. The element of fire in its essence represents our willpower, and it is the energetic force which enables us to act. Like a blazing fire, it ignites our actions. Thus, it is connected to strength, righteousness, moral standards, and the ability to assert oneself. It is also about one's own beliefs, identity, and speaking out what one is convinced to be true, having the strength and authority to take action. It makes us directed in following our convictions, and therefore makes us courageous. Fire within us is the manifestation of our own will, and also, but sometimes difficult to distinguish, the divine will. That's why in yoga the element of fire is said to be connected to the concept of dharma, which essentially refers to our true individuality and our moral sense, following our higher soul's purpose. Fire is needed to feel a sense of direction in life, to find one's own life purpose, and to do what is the right thing in order to accumulate more good and less bad karma, and to make the world a better place. In astrology, the element of fire is connected to the sign of Aries in the first house, the sign of Leo in the fifth house, and the sign of Sagittarius in the ninth house. Fire derives its power to act from a sense of authority. Aries and the first house are about one's own identity. That's why this type of fire energy derives its power from being oneself, being an own independent being, and thus being capable of asserting and defending oneself properly. The sign of Leo and the fifth house are about one's own self-expression, the expression of one's own feelings needed for art and creativity. This type of fire energy derives its power from the authority of the examples of the people being the closest to us and our ancestral lineage. This is maybe not too intuitive, but you all probably know that doing something that your parents already did most of the times tends to be much easier for you and tends to feel less worrying and more natural to you. than doing something that displeases your parents or your closest friends. This is because their approval gives you a sense of authority, which makes self-expression a lot easier. The 9th house and the sign of Sagittarius, though, are about one's ability of speaking one's truth and following one's own convictions, and what one thinks to be good or bad in society. Truth, in its essence, is received through debunking arguments, information, or ideologies which are contradicting each other. What remains is truth. And therefore, this type of fire energy derives its power from the authority of knowing to have found contradictions within the opponent's arguments or integrity. This enables you to tune into higher cosmic laws and principles, which allow you to create more harmony in the world and to do what you think to be right. That doesn't mean that you can't be wrong. There's always the possibility that you're missing certain information. That's why you should always reflect on your actions, but at least you try to do the right thing. Just to sum it up for you, fire element is what is needed to take action, to take the right action, and ultimately becoming a better person. The water element in its essence is all about our emotions, our energy or life energy, regaining, calming and preserving that energy, which is needed to do the things that we have or want to do. That's why it is connected to sleep, the ability to love, relaxation, cleansing trauma, and finding union with the divine, gaining access to higher spiritual states of consciousness. Thus, in yoga it refers to the concept of moksha, standing for spiritual liberation. No matter how willing you are to achieve any goal, you can't do that without a certain amount of energy and motivation, which essentially is the energy of emotion. And water element also is about finding meaning on an emotional level in what happens to us. Because to let go of trauma and to be able to heal, meaning is what nourishes our soul and makes us receptive for healing. In astrology, the element of water is connected to the sign of Cancer and the 4th house, to the sign of Scorpio and the 8th house, and to the sign of Pisces and the 12th house. In the sign of Cancer and the 4th house, we find inner emotional wisdom. It is about our capability to love, because Cancer and the 4th house represent our heart. This type of water energy is about nourishing our inner child, our emotional well-being. That's why this house is also connected to our mother and to our home. Our home is the place where we find emotional well-being and peace. The sign of Scorpio and the 8th house are about inner emotional transformation, changing the way we feel concerning to other people. This type of water energy is about healing trauma, understanding our psyche and the psyche of others. It is about the emotional felt connection with others. It is often compared with deep and dark water, with secrets, with hidden things, the occult, and with psychology. But it is also about deep emotional attachment to anything. In contrary to the former water signs and houses, Pisces and the 12th house are less clingy and more about forgiving others, unconditional love and paying back karma. This type of water energy is about the higher spiritual realm and higher states of consciousness. It is about letting go of the identification with our ego, becoming less attached and therefore less stressed and more at peace, become more intuitive. Just with a few words, the water element is about conserving and regaining energy, higher consciousness, paying back karma, relaxation and spiritual liberation. The air element in its essence represents our wishes, dreams, goals and desires. It represents our always elusive thoughts and our intellect. And it is also about communication and the encounter with other people, because through communication we form partnerships. And through partnerships we are able to fulfill our goals. Thus, in yoga the air element refers to the concept of karma, meaning worldly desire, enjoyment and pleasure. In astrology, the element of air is connected to the sign of Gemini in the 3rd house, to the sign of Libra in the 7th house, and to the sign of Aquarius in the 11th house. The sign of Gemini and the 3rd house are connected to our communication skill and the relationship to very close people in our lives, like our siblings. This type of air energy is about asking questions, being curious, and bearing the desire to understand the world around us on a more material level, like a child. It's all about developing any kind of skill that enables us to fulfill our wishes, particularly our communication skill. And it is about using our body or our voice, because that's what we do when we perform any skill. The sign of Libra and the 7th house mainly are connected to the way in which we interact with other people, especially people that we don't know very well. Therefore, this type of air energy is about diplomacy, business and forming relationships. To create those, we use our communication skill, including our body language. And it is the way in which we see other people, the prejudices we hold against them. The sign of Aquarius and the 11th house are about our biggest goals and dreams, the things that we want to accomplish on the material plane and within society. That's why this type of air energy is all about our ambitions and technological progress, especially in new age technology. In order to achieve our biggest goals, we can't just do this on our own. We need the relationships with other people, which we created based on our communication skill in the first place. To sum it up, the air element is about having desires, thinking, knowing what to strive for, and forming relationships. The earth element in its essence represents our sense of reality, being realistic and therefore being able to give an actual form to the things which we want to achieve. It is connected to the things which sustain our needs on a material level, like the needs for food, a secure home, and status. It is about being thankful for all of these things and about being grounded. Being in nature or just being outside grounds us and makes us feel more fulfilled. It is the form-giving element within creation. In astrology, the element of earth is connected to the sign of Taurus and the second house, to the sign of Virgo and the sixth house, and to the sign of Capricorn and the 10th house. The sign of Taurus and the second house are the most basic expression of this earth energy. They are about our body, our possessions, our home in its physical sense, and they are about the wealth we have accumulated in this life, but also about the knowledge that we have gained. The sign of Virgo and the sixth house are connected to our ability to face everyday life. They are about dealing with tasks that are necessary to sustain the wealth that we have gathered. That's why this type of earth energy often refers to tasks that we do not like, but which are healthy for us. But it is also about taking up space in the material, claiming things for oneself, and that often means a conflict with other people. The sign of Capricorn, the 10th house, are connected to our profession, our status, our standing in the public eye. This type of earth energy, therefore, is all about establishing material success and a good standing within society. To sum it up, the earth element in its essence is about being realistic and therefore being able to actually create the results in life that you want and to preserve the things that belong to you. And it is about thankfulness, being grounded and firm. In this way, it also calms you. I know this was a lot of information. Now we will speak about the fifth element in yogic philosophy and its context to the other four elements. And after that, I will finally tell you the answer to the question that I asked you in the beginning. What do all the elements have to do with a bow and an arrow? Knowing that the fire element represents our willpower and our intention, water our energy, air our desires and dreams, and earth the form-giving sense of reality. All these four components are important for any creative process, including any goal that you want to accomplish in the material. The fifth element in yogic tradition is the element of ether, which is strongly connected to the higher celestial realms, meaning higher states of consciousness. Because a lot of the deities connected to this element are celestial gods and goddesses, sometimes people confuse it with the air element. But the air element is mainly about thinking and desire, and not about consciousness. And there's also sometimes a confusion with water element as well, since the 12th house and the sign of Pisces are connected to water and emotions. Those indeed stand for spiritual strivings, but ether element stands for the higher states of consciousness, which have already transcended this emotional water quality. While the four classical elements stand for the creative qualities within the material realm, the ether element is standing for the spiritual, the divine spark, the consciousness connecting everything. And it is about enhancing one's consciousness to a degree in which one is less attached and striving for a higher form of understanding reality. Finally, I will tell you what the elements have to do with a bow and an arrow. Imagine someone standing on the ground, targeting his goal in the distance and drawing his bow. Imagine the goal itself, as well as the degree of tension on the bowstring, as a person's desire, representing air element. His intention, fire element, representing the arrow that he directs toward the goal. And he also needs enough energy necessary to draw the bow. The energy needed representing water element. And he also needs to be realistic about the goal that he chooses. And he needs to have a certain knowledge about how to use the bow, both representing earth element. All these four elements he needs in order to realize his goal. Without one of them, the whole process wouldn't work out. And this applies to every material goal that we want to realize, no matter what it is. Ether element in this process would be the consciousness of the person who is holding the bow. With a higher degree of consciousness, he could better reflect on his action, his level of energy, the quality of his intention, and even the goal that he chooses. Ether element is not needed for the process itself, but for reflecting on it, improving it, by questioning every element in the process. All in all, I hope this video was instructive for you, and you now have a better understanding about the importance and the nature of each of those 5 elements. and you got a better sense about the bigger picture, the way in which those elements work together. I'm currently planning a series about harnessing each of those elements on its own, and what their individual strengths and weaknesses are, to give you more detailed information. That's it. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video and you want to support this channel, give it a thumbs up, write your comment down below, and hit the subscribe button for further videos.